Have you ever been sitting around talking with friends about something that you're passionate about, right? Something that you're passionate about with that group of friends. For me, I really like movies. I've always enjoyed going to the cinema, watching a movie in a movie theater, and it's a fantastic experience with the exception of the past, like, I don't know, since 2005, they haven't really come out with a good movie. Now, I know this is obviously not true. There's been like three or four good movies since that time, since Crash was nominated Best Picture and won Best Picture. But you get the point, right? There's not that many good movies that are out there. I'm not including superhero movies because that's kind of a different caliber of movie, and that's a whole nother conversation. But that's kind of beside the point for this. But you're each talking about, the all-time classics. It could be arguing about what's better, Godfather 1 or 2, but you acknowledge that they're both extremely good. You could be talking about movies like 12 Angry Men. You talk about Pulp Fiction, right? You could talk about Shawshank Redemption. Does it really deserve the list? It's one of the best movies ever, right? It's all like fun conversation, but you acknowledge that they're all good. And then you start working around the table and you start going, well, what about you personally? What are some of your favorite movies that are all-time greats? And they finally say, D20, what's yours? And I go, I'm a huge fan of Tombstone. And they're like, yeah, that's really good, obviously. And then I'll say, like, oh, the Lord of the Rings series, obviously. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a classic. And I'll go, Kung Pao, Enter the Fist. And they're like, oh my God, that's one of the best of all times. And you're having a great time with your friends talking about this. And then you have that one friend that mentions Fight Club. And they go, oh, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's great. And everyone else is going, oh, this is such a great movie. And you're sitting there quiet because deep down it's not that great of a movie. It's one of the most overrated movies of all time. Now, you get why they like it, and you get why people like it, especially people your age that like it, because the message at the time resonated with them for whatever reason, even though it was a really weird message that didn't quite make sense in the plot, but that's beside the point. So you just be quiet the whole time and you let the conversation happen and you let them talk and all that fun stuff. And they finally work their way around to saying, well, D20, what do you think of Fight Club? And you have a choice to make at this time. Do you be honest and tell them what you actually think about the movie, or do you kind of soften the blow a little bit? This is how I feel about Psylocke. You see, Psylocke has kind of been this darling on the internet where all I see constantly on Reddit and Facebook, on BGG, on some YouTube channels, wherever, right? Wherever content creators, Instagram, that Psylocke is so great. She's so fun. She's so amazing. This conversation comes up in Discords that I'm part of. Oh, she's fantastic and whatever. And I've been quiet because I don't think she is. And I wanted to be upfront and honest about this, that I don't think she's this amazing, great hero. I don't think she's bad, right? This isn't me going to be like ranting and raving and ripping on Psylocke because I don't think she's a bad hero. I just don't think she's a great hero. And I know there's a lot of people that do. So I wanted to be upfront and honest with this review that, hey, I'm not going to be sitting here praising Psylocke nonstop, that you may not like the end result of what I have to say at the very end of this video. So, if you made it this far and you say, I don't want to handle that negativity in my life, well, before you go, hit the like button, subscribe, because that stuff really helps out. I really appreciate it. But I just want to be honest about it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to drop down the table. We're going to look over her cards a little bit, talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk a bit about my personal feelings, right? These reviews are subjective by nature. It's very hard to make an objective review of a hero because it's your own personal experience. So it's just my subjective review. You may disagree with me. Totally cool. That's awesome. And feel free to put down in the comments that you love Psylocke, and you can let me know why. Totally cool and totally fine. But let's drop down and let's talk a bit about her cards. All right, so here is her deck laid out. We're just going to go through her cards, not the entire pack that it came with. But let's start with Betsy. Betsy Braddock has 3 recovery, which, by the way, 3 recovery seems like low for her and what she's trying to do, but it's fine, whatever. 6 hand size, 10 hit points, which is pretty good for an X-Men or a mutant in general. Setup, put your 2 side energy upgrades into play. Side knife, side face up, that's fine. Then you can exhaust 1 side energy upgrade and shuffle 1 psionic card from your discard pile into your deck. All right, cool. So she does have the 2 side knife cards. They're double-sided, so 1 side knife, 1 side katana. So side knife is a permanent. Psylocke gets +1 thwart. So her stat line. Oh, I guess we should talk about her hero side first before we do that. So Psylocke is a 1/1/2, 4 hand size, so it drops down a lot. And then when you would use one of Psylocke's basic powers, flip 1 side energy. It's not a force interrupt. It's just an interrupt. So you don't have to do it. You can choose to do it, right? So 1/1/2 stat line, obviously terrible. But side knife gives you +1 thwart. The other one does too. So you really start off as a 3/1/2 stat line, which is pretty good. And you can exhaust side knife to generate a mental resource, and you may flip this card. If you do, it's a permanent restricted card. Psylocke gets +1 attack, and her basic attacks gain piercing, which piercing is really nice to have. Exhaust side katana, generate a fist resource or strength or whatever, and you may flip this card, right? And then you have 2 of those cards to work with. So right out of the gate, you have 2 resources. And this is what a lot of people were hyped for, is that it's like playing Spider, but you double the amount of starting resources, right? You have 2 right away, which is it's fine, right? It's a fine way to play. Totally cool, whatever. So we have our obligation stuff down here. We're going to put this aside, but I just want to note that one of the tough things with our obligation is that you cannot flip your Psy Katana upgrades, and then when it's revealed, you flip them to Psy Katana and exhaust it. This is rough because if you want to run another weapon like Scimitar or Scimitar, whatever you want to call it, which I do think makes sense in her deck, it would cause that to go away because you don't have like a side holster yet or something. Like you need to have side holsters so you can run 3 restricted weapons. And we'll get into why like that's kind of a pain a little bit later. But it is important to note like the obligation can be rough from that perspective. And if you wanted to flip back to your knives, you couldn't. So that part might stink. But in general, that's to me the worst part of it. And then her actual like bad cards, I'm not going to go into them too much. They're really not that bad overall. Like they're fine. I think on stream, which if you're not a part of the Twitch community, you should be at twitch.tv/D20 Woodworking. I think the first time I got I think I got her Nemesis like 4 times in a row. Like it was kind of crazy. But anyway, it's fine. Nothing too crazy, nothing too awful. It's middle of the road for me. So let's start with her signature ally, which is Angel. It's a 3-1-2-3 stat line, which is fine. After you play Angel from your hand, ready your identity. Not bad, right? I like the idea of being able to ready her up, especially if we need to thwart a lot of the board and whatever. It stinks that you can only do it like once, essentially. I wish there was a way to like re-trigger it. That might be a little too strong. I get it. But it's fine, right? It's a fine signature ally. I don't think it's anything super special or super amazing. It's fine for what it is. Okay, so Flurry of Blades. Let's go through the events. You have 3 of these cards. They're a 3-cost event. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. Each side knife you control, choose an enemy and confuse it. For each side katana you control, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage. So the rough math is if you have both side katanas, and you can flip these fairly easily, like, well, once maybe, a phase or whatever. But you can flip them fairly easily. Like you don't get stuck on where you don't want to be, which is nice. But roughly her damage then is 3 for 6 damage. It's not great, right? It's not great damage that she's outputting there. The special thing with that is that you can confuse the enemy, which, okay, fair enough. That's the big thing that they have going on there. Let's skip over to Mental Detection because that's the other 3 cards we have that are events. And it's 2-cost event, remove 1 threat from a scheme. For each knife you have, remove 2 additional threat. For Sai Katana, draw 1 card. So this could just be a 2-cost and lets you draw 2 cards and remove 1 threat. That's totally fine and cool. A lot of times the way I play this, because I usually end up playing where I have 1 katana, 1 knife, is generally how I end up playing. So as a 2/2/2 hero, is I remove 3 threat and draw a card, which isn't bad, right? For 2 cost is not terrible whatsoever. It's fine for what it is. Totally cool. Then let's get into Telepathic Suggestion. It's a 2-cost event. Psionic card. When you reveal a card from the encounter deck, cancel its 1 reveal effects. For each side katana you control, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage for it. For each side knife you control, choose a scheme and remove 1 threat from it. This is actually a great card. This was one of the more interesting cards, I thought. And that was a lot of fun. It was really cool in the way that it worked. Unfortunately, I didn't always get it when I needed it, and then you didn't want to hold on to it, but it's still a good card, right? It's fine for what it is. Then Psionic Redirect is her defense card. When 2-cost event, when you would take any amount of damage, prevent 2 of that damage. For each side katana you control, prevent 2 additional damage. For each side knife, confuse an enemy. Okay, fine. Then we get into her support and upgrades. Well, let's start with support first. Training Regiment allows you to exhaust Training Regiment, search your deck for a skill card, and all of her upgrades are skill cards, and there's other ones too you can capitalize on, and add it to your hand. Then you shuffle. If you're in hero form, discard 1 card from your hand. So it's a way to tutor back in your upgrades. So what are these upgrades that we speak of? Psylocke gets +1 defense for a 1-cost upgrade. It's really good. After Psylocke defends against an attack, you discard this to ready up Psylocke. I don't love this discarding mechanic, and Psylocke has a lot of it. So I will just say up front, I'm not a big fan of this, and then having to like retutor it back in and then rebuild it, like that's not enjoyable for me. And I think that's one of the things that hurts her with me. 1-cost upgrade, Psylocke ignores the guard and patrol keyword. After Psylocke thwarts, discard Psylocke training, confuse enemy. This is actually a card I like to put in and leave played in, because getting around guard and patrol is huge nowadays. And there's so many other ways you're confusing an enemy that I don't need like more confusion. Like that's not very rarely playing Psylocke did I ever think, wow, I wish I could confuse the enemy even more. That was not something that ever really happened. So I never had a reason to discard that. But the guarding keyword, like ignoring it, was really nice. Finally, 2 cost upgrade. Psylocke gains Retaliate 1, which is fine. After Psylocke attacks, discard this card to ready each weapon upgrade you control. Okay, you're paying 2 now to basically be able to ready up 2 later on. Like, it's an okay trade-off. It's nothing great. So generally the way I was playing her, really quick, is she comes out in Justice, right? And one of the things they show off is float like a butterfly, right? And I'll put the card up there or something. Float like a butterfly states that when a character you control attacks a confused enemy, increase the amount they attack deals to the enemy by 1, which is kind of an important card, right? If you're going to play Justice, she doesn't have that much damage on the board here, right? Her big hit is a 6 hit, and that's it. Her other ones don't really do much damage, right? One's an interrupt to stop damage from happening, or and stop a reveal from happening, right? So like her actually physically doing damage is on these 3 cards. Now, you can make the argument that you can make her become a 3-attack hero, which is strong enough, but I always felt like in Justice I was never doing enough damage. So float like a butterfly is an important card for you in order to get it in there, so you can increase that damage. Like you really need that done, and then you need to keep the villain confused the entire time, or whoever you're attacking, right? Confused the whole time. As I mentioned before, the Scimitar basic upgrade, after you play another Psionic card, which a lot of her cards are Psionic, exhaust Scimitar or Scimitar, deal 2 damage to enemy. It was a really great card, but then you need also a side holster in order to run it, so that's kind of important to know. And that was the main. There's some other good cards in there. They have the double now that we know about with Professor X on, that allows you to double up for Psionic cards, all that fun stuff, whatever. And then that's her cards. And Justice, I felt like, again, I was never doing enough damage, and I didn't really need to use a bunch of Justice cards because she could control threat on the board really easily. She could control threat and minions really easily, I felt like. So when I was playing solo, I needed to put her in aggression. In aggression, you could do a lot of interesting things with Hone Technique, right? There's a lot of actually strong builds with her that use Hone Technique, because you have the mental resources down here that you can trigger it all the time. Her side bow attack is pretty good to get around Retaliate as well. It helps with like fluid motion as well. You can add combat training, all that fun stuff. All that stuff is pretty good. Power of the Mind was the other card I was thinking of before. All that stuff is fine. You got team building and whatever else you need to do to play Psionic cards. It's all fine. Protection, I couldn't really get her to work well in protection. Like it was okay, but there was a lot of build that I had to do, and martial arts training. Like it wasn't bad, but I'm not a great protection player. And then leadership was okay. Basically, I just put bodies in front so that she can slowly chip away damage. So I always favored her in aggression, and I really started to feel kind of pigeonholed with her in aggression. So that's how I was playing her. Let me know down in the comments how you were playing her. Let me know your different builds, your different decks that you're using. But let's just talk about my overall thoughts with her now. Recently on stream, somebody pointed out that when they play Psylocke, it felt like every single time they would do a couple damage and confuse an enemy. And that's what it feels like. You see, I talk about Domino and how much I love Domino because I feel like there's a lot of planning out you have to do and a lot of different things you have to do. And you have to make sure that all your ducks are lined up in a row to do exactly what you want. Psylocke has feelings of that, where it's like, okay, I want to make sure the knife and the katana is where it is, that I'm on the right side where I want to be, and all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm just doing a couple damage to confusing enemy. It felt like I was just doing that over and over and over. And I was reading a lot to do it, right? You have to like kind of read through all these cards constantly over and over to make sure you're triggering the right thing and make sure it lines up with this. It felt like I was doing a lot for the same result over and over and over. I get some people might like that. Some people might really enjoy that. I just didn't. It felt repetitive. Again, I felt like Justice, I couldn't do as much as I really wanted to in Justice. Aggression felt like what I had to do with her because I needed to do more damage. And it just wasn't for me. I feel like you have to build her out a lot. And I don't mind build out heroes. but it was just too much. It was just too much to have to do. And then you weren't having time to put out your allies because you're so busy building out that you're just getting punched in the face. So you have to flip down, but our recovery is so low that's like, okay, I have to spend more time down there. So I have to put more things that give me more recovery, or like a crew quarters or something, so that I can recover more, but I have to build out in order to do that. But I can't do, like, it kind of snowballed on itself. And I felt like I could handle thwarting. Like I never had to worry about a scheme or a side scheme or anything like that. But I was just getting punched in the face, building out, putting allies in, and that combination didn't always feel great. It didn't feel like it was working out fun for me. I also will say that a lot of her abilities revolve around confusing, right? Confuse lock, which is fine. The problem is with confuse lock is that you have to flip down constantly to make use of it. I don't enjoy flipping down the alter ego constantly. It's just not my play style. Maybe it is for some people, but it's not for me. So it felt like I was just confusing an enemy, and then I didn't know what else to do. Now you can argue, well, make sure you put it on, katana version so that you're just doing more damage, and that's fine. Except when I wanted to be on the knife side, so then I could remove more threat or whatever. Like, it's fine, but it wasn't great feeling. Like, it never felt like super unique. To me, having two resource generators in the beginning, I felt like they were trying to do a little bit of Spider's playbook there, but I felt like Spider, you were building out and becoming progressively stronger. I never felt that way with Psylocke. I never felt like I was becoming stronger. I feel like I was just kind of like shoring up all my weaknesses, which maybe is the same thing to some people, but it felt different for me. Spider felt like I was progressing and becoming more powerful. Psylocke felt like I have a lot of weaknesses I have to keep plugging up over and over and over, and then, oh wait, I got punched in the face, I have to flip down. I also struggled heavily against stalwart and steady villains. Now, again, I think there's ways to work around that and to make it more interesting, but like half of her fun is that you can confuse lock people. And when you take that away, it's kind of rough. It feels rough. And plus, we've already kind of been there with this, right? With the heroes that can stun and confuse constantly, with like Miles Morales or Captain America, right? Like, this is nothing super new and interesting and unique. So this doesn't feel new and interesting and unique. I will say that most of the times, for those that don't know, when I get a new hero pack, what I do is I will cut it open, do a Patreon exclusive video or a YouTube membership exclusive video where I show off the cards, do hot takes, all that fun stuff. Then I go on stream, I play the pre-con, and then we play a different deck in that aspect, and then we try a different aspect that I think that would make the most sense. And then off stream, I play a bunch of times. For Psylocke, I played roughly about 15 times total. And what I like to do right before I come out with a review video like this is that I like to play it one last time on stream. The thing is, as I got set up for stream, I realized I just don't want to play her anymore. I don't find her fun or interesting enough to play her again. So instead, I played Vision. And Vision's a hero I take out of the box like once every 4 or 5 months, right? He's a hero I don't think about that often, and I don't play that often, but I don't mind playing him down again. To me, that's Psylocke. Psylocke's fine. She's fine. She's just not a hero that I want to play that often or that many times. I'd rather just play other heroes that I find more interesting, more unique, and more fun, to be honest. So that's the thing. I don't hate her. I don't think she's bad. If I was trying to be subjective and put her in a power tier list, power tier ranking, she's probably high C, low B, somewhere in there. I think Cable and Domino are stronger than she is, but she's B in there somewhere. As far as fun, she's like middle of the pack for me, and that's just where I have her. And so I know that's going to upset a lot of people, and I apologize for that, but that's what it is. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, right? What do you like? What do you not like? Am I totally off base? Do you completely agree? Let me know. While you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe button, all that fun stuff. And, by the time I finish recording this, maybe I'll actually have, what's his name? Angel. Still haven't received shipping notification for Angel, which is insane. It's been crazy long. Don't buy from Miniature Market. That was my mistake. I shouldn't have done it, but oh well, here we are.